the way the craft that we worked on flies is it doesn't fly like a conventional aircraft does, and it doesn't fly like a flying saucer would in a 1950s movie. It flies belly first. I mean, it may set down conventionally, but it always rotates. It does a roll maneuver, puts its belly towards the target, and then moves away at high speed.
So it'd be like a car flying with the wheels forward.
Right, right. I mean, it may land on the wheels, but at some point when it wants to leave, flips up, points the wheels where it wants to go, and takes off. And the gimbal video, you can see the craft do the roll maneuver. And it's really interesting. It behaves exactly like the craft that I worked on.
So much like we have different shaped aircrafts and fighter jets and cars, they probably have different shapes of these objects that operate under similar principles.
Right,
perhaps.
But they all have the same power source.
They all have the same power source. And we're also dealing with, if you think about the laws of technological progression, you think of Moore's law and you think of how things accelerate, you've got to think that if this civilization is who knows how many years more advanced than we are, if not even years. I mean, we're thinking about it in terms of conventional terms, right? The way we look at the world. I mean, they might be just superior in terms of their intellect. They've got to be. Maybe. We don't know, right?
Well, the only reason I say that is because, look, everyone doesn't necessarily start at a steam engine and go to an internal combustion engine and then, electric power, nuclear power, and go up the ladder that we come on. The binary, if the stuff is true about the origin and the binary star system, and they have heavier elements that we don't have, and this stable element 115 is a naturally occurring material, maybe that's the first thing they started experimenting with. And the version of their steam engine, their first product, was something that operated like this. And actually, when they came to Earth to look around, or, whatever, they were amazed at the stuff we were doing. These guys burned stuff and squirted out the back to go forward. So, who says they follow any kind of normal progression like that?
My thought was, if you went back to the 1400s and then you went from 1400 to 1500, you're not going to see that much of a difference technologically.
Right.
If you go from 2000 to 3000, I assume there's going to be a radical change.
Right. Well, the delta, the rate of change is magnificently higher than it used to be.
Right. So if you think about what they had in 1988 and you think about what they probably have in 2019, just logically, it seems like they would advance.
I would think so.
The only question is, are they living? Is that a living thing in terms of like a biological thing, or are they some sort of an artificially created creation like we are working on right now? I mean, we're in the middle of working on artificial reality, artificial beings, sentient beings, artificial intelligence. There's silicon-based life forms that they're essentially trying to create.
Synthetic life. They don't even need to be machines.
Right. Well, they seem to have no sex organs. The way they're described by people that have had interactions with them, assuming these people aren't liars or crazy or whatever.
Right.
That they have no sex organs and that they don't seem to have any muscle. They're just almost like a frame.
Right.
And they have enormous heads. I mean, if you look at Australopithecus or depictions of, ancient hominids, and then you go to human beings, one of the things you see is bigger heads and weaker bodies.
Well, you see a clear progression of evolution, too, where for something like that, I would lean towards a synthetic organism because it looks like it was made for a specific task. There's no reproductive organs, so, I mean, that almost kind of leaves out any kind of, physical evolution.
Right. Well, that's also our bottleneck, right? Our bottleneck is our biological imperative, the need to breed, emotions, fear, anxiety, all these different things that exist in order to force us into making sure we reproduce. I mean, that's essentially what it is. There are human reward systems that aren't necessary once they can figure out a way to make some sort of sentient artificial life. Some sort of thing that doesn't have these biological limitations that we have.
By the way,
you think about what an alien is in terms of the sort of iconic image of an alien, like the Steven Spielberg Close Encounters of the Third Kind alien. They seem like what we'd assume a human being would eventually become.
Right.
And if these things are tiny, human beings are smaller than they've ever been before. They're weaker than they've ever been before. And there seems to be a trend in that direction. And this trend seems to be amplified by our technological progression. There are a lack of need for muscle strength and our lack of need for violence. And we're moving in a society to try to get away from all the things that we think are abhorrent about human beings and the terrible behaviors that we have. If we one day do give birth to some sort of an artificial being, like Marshall McLuhan's quote, "We are the sex organs of the machine world." You know, that one day we...
Okay, I'll buy that.
Yeah, McLuhan was brilliant. And that quote has always been one of my favorites because, okay, what are we doing when we're constantly technologically innovating? We're constantly looking for faster cars, better computers, bigger screens, faster, more resolution, more pixels, more this, more that, higher bandwidth, 5G, 10G.
Right.
What are we doing? We're moving into this, if you just follow it, objectively stand back, don't attach yourself or your civilization, your culture to it, and look at what it is. We're moving 100% towards technological innovation. If you looked at this species from afar, and if you weren't a part of it, you would say, well, what does this species do? Oh, they make things. They make things better every year. Beehives are the same fucking thing that you see 10 years ago. You go by, you see a beehive, it's amazing, it's cool, but they're the same fucking thing. They figured out how to do it, they make a beehive.
Right.
We don't do that. We make better things.
What would you
constantly.
And at some point, I think that technology is going to fuse with us.
Yes.
And we're going to become...
It's already happening.
Yeah.
I mean, Elon Musk talked about it on my podcast, that we are cyborgs. You just carry it in your pocket. It's a phone. It answers any question you want. You can talk to it. It'll give you the answers instantaneously. It navigates you. It has all your phone numbers in it. It has all your contacts. You can get a hold of people. People are listening to you through it. It's connecting us in ways even involuntarily.
Haptics, that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's also getting on your wrist. How many people have iWatches, Apple Watches? They put them on their wrist.
Right. And that's only because we can't integrate them yet. But you know that point is coming.
100%. Yeah. I didn't joke about it last night, but I have a bit about it that I do, about the integration between humans and technology. Well, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that. I mean, you could look at it that way, but that is the way a conspiracy theorist would look at it. The way I would look at it is like there's obviously a progression going on, a biological progression. There's some sort of an integration with technology. There's some sort of imperative, this need for technological innovation. It's inescapable. Everyone has it. And I think it's attached to materialism in some sort of a strange way because so many people work so hard to get new things. And like, God, that seems so illogical and preposterous, and it makes people unhappy, and depression's on the rise, but nobody seems to be able to stop it. Like, why is that? Well, maybe it's because we are the electronic caterpillars that give birth to the butterfly. Maybe that's what we're doing.